네, 안녕하세요. 저는 버지니아 주하원의원 아이린 신이고요. 저희 지역구는 8지역구고 8지역구는 Fairfax County 안에 있는 지역이에요. Town of Herndon, Chantilly하고 Fair Oaks가 포함되어 있는 지역입니다.
As your second generation Korean American, what are the biggest advantages and challenges you faced in public service, and how did they shape your leadership?
My experiences as a kid of immigrants, I think, has shaped the entirety of my career and my leadership. There are, of course, disadvantages to being a Korean American or a member of a minority community in America. But I think also, as much as it was a challenge, it's actually my advantage. Being able to come from diverse experiences and have a greater understanding of what our community members are facing, I think is a big advantage. But more than that, I got into politics because when I was really young, I grew up most of my childhood without health insurance. This was before Obamacare, and we always had enough money. My dad would take us to the hospital or to get annual checkups as we needed. But when I was 16, my dad got really sick. And so he was in and out of doctor's offices having tests run, and he couldn't get a diagnosis, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And so finally, after months of frustration, he decided he was going to fly back to Korea. And in Korea, he landed at Seoul National University, went to the hospital there, and the next day he was in surgery for bladder cancer. And I think that really surprised me to realize that, in America, where our parents and our grandparents have left their countries to come in pursuit of the American dream, healthcare was so inaccessible and so unaffordable. It was easier for my dad to fly to Korea to get the care that he needed. And so back then, at least 20 years ago, cancer was 10 years before you were in remission. They said you had to be clear for 10 years before they would say you're in remission. And so for the first 5 years of that 10 years, my dad went back to Korea every 6 months for his semi-annual checkups. And then in the second half of that decade, he went back every single year for his annual checkups, right? And so I think that shaped the way that I think about public policy. It's why I got started in politics, because I don't think we have to live like this. Healthcare doesn't have to be this expensive. It doesn't have to bankrupt your family. And when I first got into politics, I was a little bit embarrassed to share my story, right? To talk about the challenges our family faced. But the more I talked about it, the more I realized there are so many people in our community who have had similar experiences. They've also flown to Korea to get medical care. They've flown to Canada or Turkey or gone home to Mexico. There are so many neighbors that we live with who have similar shared experiences. And if we as a country in America decide together that we're going to fix that, I think we can do that. But it matters that we have leaders who understand those experiences. And so I think my lived experiences, again, as a kid of immigrants and coming from a Korean family with the culture and the heritage, I think that shaped my entire leadership style, and even to this day, the way that I do my work.
As the first Korean American woman elected to the Virginia House and now a 3-term delegate, what accomplishment are you most proud of, and what are your top priorities moving forward?
It's hard to believe I'm going to be in my 3rd term already. But one of the things that I've been really proud to work on is healthcare policy. As you know, healthcare is such a big part of why I got into politics, because of my own family's experience. When I got into office, I really wanted to work on affordability and driving down healthcare costs. And so just last year, I was really, really proud to pass a bill that is going to make healthcare insurance accessible for women who get pregnant. Because right now, that's not considered a qualifying life event. But at the end of this year, that law is going to be in effect. And so pregnancy will be considered a special qualifying life event to buy health insurance off the marketplace. I've also worked on health insurance for kids with disabilities and developmental disabilities. I think that it's really important that, especially for parents who are caring for young kids who have these kinds of challenges, that they have access to healthcare and the services that they need that's affordable for them. And so I'm really proud to have worked on that my entire career. And in a time when it feels like bipartisanship is impossible. Right? You look at Congress in DC and you think about the fights between Democrats and Republicans, and that it doesn't feel like it's solvable, right? But I'm really proud to have built my entire 4 years since I've been in office on a bipartisan basis. Every single bill that I've gotten through, I've had support from Republicans on, and I am really proud of that record because I think it shows that whatever it takes, I'm willing to do to get things done for our community and to deliver. In addition to some of the healthcare stuff I've done, I've also passed protections for utility disconnections. You know, when it's 95 degrees out and you miss your payment on your electric bill, you shouldn't have your AC cut off. Or if it's 30 degrees outside and someone can't pay their gas bill, you shouldn't have your heat cut off. Those are sort of necessary protections that we have in place now with extreme weather. And I worked on that bill for 3 years. It took me 3 tries to get it done, but I kept at it, right? And so when we finally got it done in 2024, I was really proud of it because it's something that I worked on for so long. But I feel like I've gotten a lot done in my 4 years so far, and I hope that in this next term, you know, with a Democratic governor, a huge majority in the House of Delegates, I'm looking forward to being able to push even further because I think what we learned from this past election was that people care about the cost of living right now. It is too expensive right now to live. That's housing, that's healthcare, that's groceries. It is too expensive. And so I can't wait to get back to Richmond in January to work with this new governor and make affordability the #1 priority for the work that we do.
You sponsored and passed the Kimchi Day bill 3 years ago. What impact has it had on cultural awareness and the community?
You know, Kimchi Day was one of the first bills I got to work on when I first got to office in 2022. And I think about how lucky I was my first year to overlap with Delegate Markim. Delegate Markim was the first ever Korean American elected to the General Assembly here in Virginia. And so we didn't have a lot of time together, but we had 1 year together. And in that 1 year, we worked together to pass Kimchi Day. And it was one of those things that got passed unanimously. The entire House and the entire Senate said, yes, we want to pass this. And it's a rare occasion of real unified bipartisanship. And so I think that having Kimchi Day in Virginia is not just about celebrating kimchi, right? I think that the government, the state government, recognizing Kimchi Day is a recognition of the Korean American community here in Virginia. You know, across the country, the Korean American community is thriving and it's strong, but we in Virginia are home to the 3rd largest population of Koreans in the United States. And I'm really proud of that. And so when we get to celebrate Kimchi Day, I think about how far our community has come. When I was growing up and I was a kid, I would have, you know, American friends come over and we would have dinner at our house and they would see kimchi and they would be like, what's that, right? Or they'd be like, ugh, that smells weird. And now you can go to Trader Joe's, you can go to Costco, you can go to really fancy restaurants where they use kimchi as toppings on tacos or burgers. And kimchi is trendy, right? People want to eat kimchi. They recognize it for the health benefits that it has as a fermented food and the probiotics. And I think it is just a really interesting time that we live in to be able to celebrate the diversity of our community. But I also think it's a testament to the strength of the Korean spirit. We just completed celebrating the 4th annual Kimchi Day. You know, it's November 22nd. You know why we created it November 22nd? It's because it's 11 ingredients, so November, and then 22 health benefits. So it's November 22nd. And so, you know, this year we had a great celebration here in Herndon. I was really proud to host it here in Herndon in conjunction with the bож이냐 한인회. And we hope that next year when we do it, we'll do it even bigger because it'll be 5 years in the making. And there's this really fun caucus in the General Assembly in Richmond in 2022 when we formed it. There were a number of other delegates who love kimchi. They're not Korean, but they love kimchi. And so they told me they wanted to start the Kimchi Caucus. And so we have a little contingent of delegates who are the Kimchi Caucus. And so for the 5th year, when we celebrate Kimchi Day, I'm going to invite them here to eat kimchi with us and celebrate. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next year. You know, the Hallyu wave and this international phenomenon of Korean food, Korean dramas, Korean music, like K-pop. And certainly that's also about our culture. K-beauty is a culture, is all the rage. I mean, have you watched K-pop Demon Hunters? because everybody's obsessed with K-pop demon hunters. It's so funny because now I'll be out in the community and people will come up to me and they'll say, American people will come up to me and they'll say, are you Korean? And I'll say, yeah. They're like, have you seen K-pop demon hunters? And I'll say, yes, I've seen it. And they'll say, my daughter loves it. Or, right, there's always someone who loves K-pop demon hunters. And I think it's just a testament to the way that our community has really demonstrated our talent, our culture, and remain really proud of the Korean history that we have brought with us from our motherland.
You recently ran in the special election for Congress. What lessons did you take from that experience, and what are your future political goals?
Running for Congress was not something I had planned to do. With the sudden passing of Congressman Connolly, who was such a friend of the Korean American community, I really had not had that on my bingo card. It wasn't something I expected to be doing. And when that seat opened up, you know, the 11th district is 25% Asian American. And so it felt to me like we deserved a voice in Congress to represent our community. And I decided to run for office and for Congress because I thought that we needed to take our shot and demonstrate that we have political power here in Virginia. And while we fell short of the desired outcome we wanted, I feel like I learned a lot of lessons from it. The first was probably that I think we have a lot of room to grow. As an Asian American and Korean American community, I think there are often times when we still feel like America is someone else's country. 아직까지는 남의 나라란 생각하는 분들이 되게 많은 것 같아요. I hope that with the more work that I can do in the Korean American community, we can change that mindset because this actually is our country. We live here and we get to have a say in the kind of government we want to build. You know, the idea of the American experiment is that it's still an experiment and we're still figuring it out as we go. And so that was a lesson for me. But I also have been really overwhelmed by the support that I've received in the Korean American community. Korean American voters don't really vote, right? They're not engaged in public life. They are busy working and taking care of their children and, you know, being in their community. They're not focused on politics. And still, there were so many Korean voters who came up to me and said, I voted for you. Or who came to me and said, I wasn't going to vote, but I went to vote just because of you. And I realized that that means that we have an obligation, as the younger Korean American generation, we have an obligation to make sure that we are in these places so that we have a reason to give to our Korean American voters to come vote for us. And that together, I think that, again, it's going to take all of us, and I think it'll take some time to build political power, but I really believe that we can do it. And I think that the Korean community has a lot to offer to the next chapter of the American experiment.
What advice would you give to Korean American third and fourth generation youth who hope to enter public service or politics?
I have some advice that I could give young people, students who are thinking about pursuing a career in public service or looking at public policy or political science as a major. But actually, my advice is not for the students, but for their parents. Because what I want to make sure I do is encourage parents to tell their kids about careers in public service. It's not just being an attorney or being an engineer or being a computer scientist or even a doctor. Those aren't the only pathways to being successful in America. And careers in public service are really honorable. You could choose a career like mine where I ran for public office and I'm now a politician, but you can also be behind the scenes in lots of different ways, working inside state government, inside county government, or working, you know, even as principals of public schools, right? Those are all really important ways to contribute to our community. And so I hope that parents will take more opportunities to give their kids exposure to jobs like mine and give them encouragement to think about other jobs that they could do in public service because I think as we get more and more or more generations who are here, third, fourth, and maybe fifth and sixth someday, right? That they are a part of this community. They are a part of this country. And they need to be a part of that in all ways possible, not just in the ways that we see most visibly, right? And so I hope that parents will encourage their students. There are a lot of ways to get involved with my campaign, my office, or the state government. You know, for example, with 13 and 14-year-olds, the House of Delegates has a page program. And so I think this year we had a number of Korean American pages apply, which is really great. And I hope to see more Korean Americans apply to that program. But there are lots of ways, and if I can ever be a resource to parents, I'd love to be. But I hope parents will encourage their kids to think about careers in public service, again, as politicians, policymakers, judges, teachers, principals, lots of options. 구독과 좋아는 사랑입니다. 만나에서 만나요.